Hi, fifth grade. Today we're going to start drawing some of the muscles of our body onto our skeletons. We're going to explore how to draw these muscles into our gesture drawings, how to start from simple shapes and indicate some of our knowledge of these muscles. And then this will sort of build up to the last two videos we'll have will be a hands and foot demo, and then what we can do in foreshortening, and then what we can do to put these together into a three-paneled comic to really show our understanding of figurative anatomy and proportion. Along the way, I'm going to show you, well, if we're back at school, all of you would get a muscle, and it would be different from everybody else's muscle, and you would be responsible for cutting that muscle out and bringing it in like on red paper and attaching it to Mr. Bones. We would all draw along on a transparency over our skeletons and then do a quick exercise to isolate that muscle. But because we don't have the luxury of being together and learning together, I've simplified the muscle groups into 3 muscle groups, and we're only going to do about 5 from each group. So there'll be muscles of the arms, muscles of the legs, muscles of the trunk, and that's pretty much what we're going to do. We're not going to worry about the muscles of the head, and we're just going to stop right there because that will probably be enough to start drawing your people with accurate muscles. If you've ever tried to make somebody look muscular and they end up looking like the Michelin tire man, this should be able to help in understanding the actual shapes of these muscles. And furthermore, because we're walking around with them, it's kind of interesting to know their names and to know how to keep them stretched and strong and healthy. I think it's worth mentioning when we talk about muscular anatomy and physiques that at any given time throughout the history of the world, there's been a culture, a place, or a time where every single different kind of physique was considered the ideal. And I think that's important to keep in mind, especially as I've seen over the last decade or so, 5th graders who are getting more and more self-conscious about these things. Now, first off, when you're 10 or 11, you're only like a third of your way growing, and your physique changes for your entire life. Like your entire existence, your physique changes. From an artist standpoint, every different kind of physique is absolutely beautiful and interesting. It's what gives us variety in our lives. It's what inspires us to be figurative artists, which I am. I think that the human form is a really, really cool shape.
I think people are not good shapes and frames are better shapes because people just look like a train that has this like scrap cut off of it. It doesn't look good.
Well, you're more interested in drawing vehicles, and yeah, I probably should have some units that work with drawing vehicles. Thank you for that feedback, Tavis. And ultimately, that's what it is. We get bogged down by drawing people, but breaking it up into shapes is going to help. Understanding the anatomy is going to help. But I will show you an exercise with each one, just for fun, because it's, we might as well be moving while we have this time. But I did want to make that point about how our different types are different. Even if in my own, like in just this culture, in my own lifetime, I've seen like the ideal form change. When I was a little girl, ladies used to be going jazzercising to get rid of their rear ends. Like, no kidding, having a posterior that stuck out was something that women were trying to avoid. And at the time, the musicians from Mix-a-Lot said, hey, you know what, I can't lie, folks, this is, I actually prefer this other physique. Now, even though this is a little bit of an objectifying kind of celebration of form, he wasn't saying that to put down thin women. He was saying, I have a different preference. So it was in response to that. And that's within my own lifetime, how things have changed, what we consider to be ideal. So, again, I think it's worth noting because it does come up when we talk about different body types. And one of the reasons as an art teacher that I think that's important to have these conversations is because every how to draw book has idealized forms or very cartoonish forms. So it doesn't really give you an indication of how to draw those forms and physiques in sort of their natural state. And therefore, it doesn't have any cause for celebrating the diversity in the way that we all look different. So I feel like I'm remiss if I don't mention that part of it, because as we're talking about how to draw figures, it does come up.
I'm a good helper with you, so.
Yes, you are. Okay, first is our neck muscle. It's got a shape like this.
Okay. Let's see, that's right there. Right about here you did that, right?
Yep, so it looks like this.
Yeah, I see.
Yep, that's right. And then we make a little thing down like this. This is our deltoid.
It's almost like facing
The shoulder
the arms.
muscle. Yeah, like this.
Yeah.
Okay. Bicep has two little curves like that, and then goes down like this.
Ooh. It goes down the hands.
Yep, like so.
This one doesn't have another hand.
And then our triceps to go like that.
That squeaking hurts my ears.
Sorry, buddy.
It's okay.
Then we have the brachialis, which is a muscle that helps move our elbow. It actually doesn't go down that far. And then our flexor digitorum on this side. Oops. And on this side, it's the extensor digitorum.
Oh, I did the wrong thing.
It's okay. I'm going pretty fast, honey. Up here, we have a muscle that looks kind of like, it's like a big triangle like that.
It might look like a
It's our
heart.
pectoralis muscles, yeah, a little bit. The serratus muscle goes in the ribs.
I made it.
Then we have the our latissimus dorsi right here, and our external obliques. Then we have the gastroabdominis. So you kind of draw like, it looks like a lobster's tail. Like so.
Why do you keep saying
Mm-hmm. From the front view, we're going to see a little bit on the sides of our glute muscles. So gluteus maximus.
Yeah, do they follow the bone cage?
Yeah, the serratus muscles do. They go along the ribs like little fingers. Okay. And then we want our rectus femoris.
You're using like an orange marker.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get two.
This is the vastus lateralis and medius. We see a little bit of our patella, which is the cartilage of our kneecap. Peroneus is right there. And then we see a little bit of the gastrocnemius on the other side.
See, I did it.
That's the orbiculocoeus oculi, I believe it's called, the masseter up there.
It's on the eyes.
That's the jaw bone muscle. Helps our jaws talk and move. So we have kind of muscle person here that lays right over. But you could also, if you just had a pen or a marker, you could draw it right onto the skeleton. Okay, so on your skeleton, if you have some kind of a piece of plastic that's relatively stiff, maybe it came in packaging for something, you can use this if you also have a permanent marker. At school we use thin red Sharpies so that they don't come off of this and it kind of looks like muscles, and we draw the person on top. So we have a situation like this. Now, you might not have a material that would work for this. If you do and you have a permanent marker, I actually don't even have a red one, I have an orange one, and I have a red pen. That'll work. But if you don't, you can just draw directly on your skeleton with a red pencil. And with the red pencil, red marker, red anything, you can do that as well, and we can maybe just put a piece of tracing paper over for our person. But basically what you're going to be doing is following along with drawing the muscles, and then I'll show you how to draw those actual, like how that looks underneath the skin. We're going to start off with the neck. Insert it on the mandible and going down to the clavicle are our neck muscles. Remember back when we drew our necks of our people, and we wanted to make sure we know that our neck muscles start right behind your ears and then go down, but if we drew them from our ears down, then we look like Henry Rollins, a Black Flag. But because our heads are forward, these look like they're a little bit thinner than they are. This is the sternoid-cleidomastoid process. Feels really good to massage this part of our neck muscle. The next muscle is a shoulder muscle called the deltoid. And for the deltoid, a lateral raise really stretches that out, because you're talking about your shoulder. Your deltoid is here, so when you're pulling that motion, it's important to keep that strong. The next muscle is the pectoralis major muscle, sometimes called our pecs. Our pectoralis are your pecs, or your chest muscles. So one way of strengthening those is a motion that's coming in. Any motions that are coming in towards you are going to strengthen your chest muscles, but also sometimes, like, to stretch those muscles, any kind of like a chest opener, like this sort of a motion in bow pose, that's really good to open up and stretch those muscles, because we want to be thinking about not just strengthening the muscles, but also stretching them. Over here is a big muscle called latissimus dorsi. Latissimus dorsi is pretty much your lower back, and this can be an easy one to forget about stretching and exercising. The pull-up is the classic, working your whole back sort of move. Plank helps with this too. Also plank with arm rows. So, you're in a plank. And pulling up like that. And there's also one you can do without weights that I really hate, but it's reverse snow angel, sometimes it's called, where you're going to be on your back, raising your legs and your arms, and you're going in this motion here. And then insert it onto our ribs. It's a muscle, it kind of looks like little fingers, a little fan. This is called the serratus muscle. In a serratus push-up, your serratus muscles are commonly not worked out muscle group, but you can do it with a serratus push-up, which you have your hands a little bit further away than they normally be. You lower down into a push-up, and then when you come up to the top, you just raise your body just a little bit more and raise your chest, and you can feel that right here. And another way is being up against the wall and moving your arms in like that. You can feel that muscle. external obliques. External obliques, you should come on the front. The side plank.
No, I don't do good severe poses. I just do whatever I want pose.
Well, that's fine as long as we're moving, but you can feel in the external obliques. You can make it a little bit more challenging. And a good stretch is to bring your leg up like this, and you get a chest opener where you can feel, it's called Wild Thing. Right here, we have our gastroabdominis, or our abs. Rectus abdominis is your abs. Everybody has a six-pack. There's all this thing, oh, you know, they have a six-pack. We all have these muscles. It's just how visible that they are. But one way to strengthen them, and again, plank is an exercise that gets used a lot because it uses most of your core muscles. But the bicycle crunches are pretty great for your abs. So the triceps are on the back right here with these 2 points going down. You don't just want to work out your biceps without working out your triceps. So the tricep push-up, watch out for that, watch over your toes there. The tricep push-up is just like the regular push-up, except you're keeping your elbows in line with your chest. And you can really feel that. If it looks easier than it is, and if you have trouble doing that, you can go on your knees for it, or you can do the tricep dips. But keeping this part of your arm strong helps to keep the other parts of your arm strong as well. Yeah. And the biceps kind of go the opposite way. They have the 2 points here, and then go down. So whenever people think about working the arm muscles, it's always, you know, the bicep curls, which are, you know, classic, but you get a sense of how that muscle is working. There's the humerus, the radius and ulna. For the anterior view, we've got the brachialis that kind of goes between the two of them, like this. So your brachialis is the muscle that it helps your elbow joint move. So any exercises that you're doing with your arm is going to help it. But a big one is just the reverse, sort of picking up something heavy, like this. And you can feel how, where that elbow joint moves, how that's a really important part of moving your arm muscles. But you can do this if you don't have weights, really with anything, with tricep dips, any kind of dips that are going to be working that motion right here is going to affect your brachialis. The flexor digitorum superficialis is the muscle that is on this, we call the anterior view. Comes down like this and onto the tendons of the fingers. If we were going to draw it the other way, sort of if the hand was doing this sort of a thing. That's the palm of the hand. It comes out, and this is the extensor digitorum. Extensor digitorum and flexor digitorum are the muscles that are attached to in the tendons that move your hand, your fingers. So the extensor is for extending, and the flexor is for flexing. So it's all about your grip on the anterior and posterior side of your arm. Chin-ups and pull-ups both strengthen those muscle groups. This gripping, and you can feel that, And extending is a really important part of the movement of our arms. But we also have the added bonus of being the only primate that can also have motion in our thumbs. And the muscles of the legs. Going from the front, the big one is the rectus femoris. You can think of it, it's on the femur. This is also known as a group of 4 muscles called your quads. And we have rectus femoris is part of a group of 4 muscles known as your quads, but it's this big leg muscle here. And, you know, lunges are best for this. You can really feel that muscle here. And if you want more of a challenge, the jumping lunge. You get really exhausted after a few of those. And here is the vastus lateralis and medialis. You can see from the front a little bit over here. Vastus lateralis and vastus medialis are best stretch exercise with sumo squats. Here of our glute muscles. And then you see a little bit of the gastrocnemius from the back side. Okay, for drawing the back of the leg, we have the femur, tibia and fibula is in the back here. The femur attached to the pelvis, so, and there's our coccyx for the back of the tailbone. So, first we had that glute muscle, the maximus and medius. We don't, I usually don't have anybody have the gluteus maximus or medius because it's the one muscle everybody knows, right? A lot of these names, people know the biceps and triceps, but as far as any further than that, it's usually just the gluteus maximus. And so we don't do that one, but it is an important part of drawing when we're drawing people. And good exercise for it is if you, it's just this simple motion and you can feel that those glute muscles moving. And then right here is the biceps femoris. Biceps femoris, which is sort of like the biceps of your legs, we're going to be able to exercise doing a bridge pose with a leg lift. So if you're up in a bridge pose, just doing this, you're going to feel that muscle move. Do it on both sides, stay even. But when we draw that from the back, this is what we get. Perineus is over here. This. And then our gastrocnemius in the back. So we see that around the front a little bit. We're going to see these around the front in some ways. Our gastrocnemius is our calf muscle. It's in the back there. And really easy to feel that one is just raising yourself up and down on your toes. you can even just hold that, and you can really feel how that calf muscle is strengthened. And also, if like people who wear high heels a lot, that muscle gets pretty strong because you're walking around using it in a different way. The only problem is that sometimes it can shorten a little bit, so it can be more painful when you're on flat feet. A good stretch for that is a little block like this. You can really feel that muscle being stretched. You can do this on stairs as well. Then there's a semi-membranosus and semi-tendinosus. Gonna go up here. So, semi-membranous and semi-tendinosus, which I think I am saying them right. I've only ever read both words without having them in any kind of accurate medical context, but they're part of your hamstring group, and these are also really important to keep stretched in your legs. A pretty easy way is the downward dog, where you go into a plank and just lift your hips. You can pedal your feet, and you can feel those hamstrings stretched out. Really important to keep your hamstrings stretched. Another way to keep your hamstring stretched that feels really good is just a forward fold. Even just hanging your head in sort of ragdoll kind of pose. But from a front view, this is what we'd be looking at. I'll take this whole sheet out because I'm going to assume that you don't have a transparency like this to use. If you do, you would have drawn all of your muscles on this sheet. And then with our tracing paper, we're going to go on and actually draw what we'd see from the skin side. There's the head. And then we have the sternocleidomastoid process. We see that bone, remember the clavicle, a little bit of the deltoid out here. And then see bicep. We see the tricep in the back. Brachialis right here, as well as the flexor digitorum superficialis. We have this deltoid, the pectoralis muscles. See like this. Latissimus dorsi on the side here, followed by some of the serratus muscles. The external obliques as well. This is the gastroabdominis. And then for the leg, rectus femoris, the vastus lateralis medius here. See a little bit of the glute muscles in the back. And you see a little bit of the gastrocnemius on either side. We see some of the patella right here. So this is the actual shape of those muscles. With the brachialis, get those extensors. Bicep, tricep, brachialis is in there.
Really tall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's obviously a male, and it's pretty muscular. So when we were talking about having, that always being the example of drawing muscles. So how do you do this with the different physiques that I was talking about, or doing it if it's a woman and so forth? So this is what we can do. We've done this for this little anatomy plate in our journals. And we drew over the anatomy plate if you had tracing paper or a transparent, a tracing paper to put over the transparency. But we can just go back to literally back to our drawing board. Drawing is just breaking things down to shapes. So we can simplify what we just did there with the muscles by having a triangle, another triangle, almost like in our gesture drawings, ellipse, 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 ellipse.
How many ellipses do people have?
Well, we're doing 2 for the leg, 2 for the arms and 2 for the legs. So it's just like we had the biceps up here, and then we have biceps femoris down here, these first parts. And then we have these extensor kind of things. Okay, so that's that rectus femoris right there, the gastrocnemius. So we kind of already have the shapes of these when we draw our people. I'm leaving out the hands, because I'll do another hand one later, but you can just kind of do it as a little diamond shape right now, or basically a triangle for the feet. Now if we want to take these muscles, if we want to make it a woman, then we're going to bring in where the external obliques are a little bit more.
Okay. I did it, Mama.
Let's see. That's good. He's got some really good muscles in there. Let's hold this to the side. So we'd be moving this inwards. It always gets a little bit awkward when we do this part, but it's very natural part of the human form. It's fat deposit there that should be normalized. And so now we have, using those simple shapes and kind of molding them in a little bit. And to make this even easier, these shapes really do already have the indication of these muscles. So when we're talking about different forms, like I was saying, everybody has different physiques, then you can just like when you're drawing the different physiques of people, all you have to do is change those basic shapes that you're working off of. We can all draw triangles, we can all draw ovals or ellipses.
I'll try to stuff it all on the page.
If we trace just along the sides of these, we're already going to get an indication of those muscles. And if we want to do different shapes and sizes of people, we just change the original shapes and sizes of our ovals, ellipses, and our triangles. So you can see here how I've gone around the edges of it. And we can make people all different shapes and sizes.
Did it. I went around it with red.
You did?
So like they're holding hands.
It does kind of look like that.
Mine's bouncing on a train smokestack.
And then we can put on features like hair or clothes, shoes. So just by starting with those shapes, knowing a little bit about the shapes of the actual muscles underneath, and then tracing along the outlines, we can get a whole variety of different ways of drawing people. Go ahead.
That one needs to have its feet. It just goes down.
Yeah, I know. Do a triangle for the foot for now, and I'm going to make a different video about feet and hands. Now, using what we did from the skeleton video and the gesture drawings, we can kind of put all of this together. Say, Tavish, could you do a pose for me over there? So his head is there. We did the spine line is tilted up. This, and see, we use our gesture drawing. And then if I go along the outside, now knowing what I know a little bit of muscles, now he doesn't have big, huge muscles, but he still has the same muscles as you and me. Got little biceps, and then once I have that, then I can start to put the clothes on and get a little drawing.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so we just explored, there's hundreds and hundreds of muscles. We only looked at just a few from our arms, our legs, and our torso. There's a lot of them, but there are sort of the bigger muscle groups that, help with our drawings. And because we're at a distance and doing this not all together, I wanted to only make you responsible for 15 of them, just to learn about them, as opposed to the dozens and dozens of them we'd go over together as a class. We would usually do just a few at the beginning of each class and get moving a little bit and get some oxygen in our brains. So and all these things are important, not just when we're walking around with these muscles. We have finally put some meat on Mr. Bones, and we use these muscles all the time. It's important to keep them stretched and healthy, and now we know sort of how to draw them too, and it helps in the realism of our figures. And it's just kind of neat to know because, we're walking around, we're carbon-based meat sacks walking around with this stuff. We might as well know how to keep it healthy, stretched, and to even do representations of it.
This is the first exercise video I've been doing.
Well, part of art is exercise, and art is about looking at the world through all different perspectives. One of the other really important parts of all of this is noting how different physiques and different body types are all beautiful. As an artist, if everybody looked like some Instagrammed ideal of a tiny little wasp waist and just if everybody looked the same, there'd be no point to have artists. There'd be no point to draw. There'd be no point to be creative or to make things, because when things are homogenized and all the same, then there's really no value in novelty. And novelty drives our brains. Even if you're not into art, I know I'm talking about the brain again, but when things are unique or different, our brains perk up, and that's a survival mechanism. So that's sort of a big, overarching reason that's very deep inside of us why differences in people are important. It keeps us engaged in the world. So what I'd like you all to do for this project is try to draw along with the muscles and play around. Don't expect it to be absolutely perfect. Try to draw some of the arms and legs and the chest. You can even start with some of the shapes and draw along the outside of them to try to make them look realistic. This is all exercises in playing around. There'll be one more video of hands, feet, and foreshortening, and our main objective here is to start thinking of Tavish. Our main objective here is to start thinking of a 3-paneled comic where we would show what we've learned about drawing people. So we're looking at, I guess, 2 more videos after this one. But for this week, just play around with these muscles, play around with drawing people in proportion and trying to make them realistic. This is a practice thing. We're not looking for a final product. We're looking for a lot of practice and fun. Do the gesture drawings and start to kind of put the some of the indications of muscles with it. Just practice, practice, practice. Okay.